Hello and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Tony Anderson, and on this occasion, I am joined. Let's not spark it up. Let's just be honest. I'm joined by Craig Anderson. How are you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad you're honest about it. You weren't going to try and pretend that my voice was in fact someone else's voice, so the listeners will appreciate that.
Yeah, I hadn't prepared anything. I hadn't prepared anything jazzy for introducing you, so I just bottled it the last second and then just said, let's go for Craig Anderson. And yes, on this occasion, we are here to talk through the winners and losers of the League Cup. What were you doing at the weekend, Craig? You were saying you were forced into a party.
Yeah, I was at a 5-year-old's birthday party, so that was. I couldn't get to Rugby Park for the game, but and it was. I mean, I suppose it was on a Sunday, so you would normally be like quite safe on that. But 1 to 3 on a Sunday with Dundee United's European exploits, that meant we were clashing with the game. But I did get home to see all but the first 15 minutes of it, so wasn't too bad. And went a wee day out to Balloch on Saturday, which was nice. It's a nice sunny day for it. It's handy for it's a half an hour train direct from here, so it's a nice do that quite often. Nice walks, nice in the sun. So yeah, what about yourself?
I love that. I was just, despite the weather on Saturday, I just stayed in like a dweeb and watched all the football. My wife always works on a Saturday, so I just went straight. I was going to sit, watch all the football despite the weather, and then Sunday watched it. I actually didn't go to Livingston. So a lot of football I've been going to watch in recent times, as people will know with my affiliation. And so I got my TV outside, up at the back, under the trees in the decking, so there was no glare, and managed to watch the Hibs game outside, which was great. My friend had a wee barbecue and thoroughly enjoyed that match, but I am not going to start with that. Give me a winner, Craig, from Kilmarnock 2, Dundee United 1.
So I could easily pick Ben Brannan for his pass and Marcus Dackers for getting the goal, but I do feel like even in their very short Kilmarnock careers, we've talked about them quite a lot already. So I am instead going to talk about Kelly's new captain, Brad Lyons, who capped off a memorable week for himself by scoring a winning goal in this game.
And what makes it such a memorable week?
So he missed the 2-2 draw at Easter Road last week because he was having his first, but definitely having a child anyway, and so he was, I think, quite a late call off for the game because his wife or his partner went into labour, so it had a wee boy at the weekend.
What decade do you think he would have been told, we don't give a shit, we've got a game? 80s?
Yeah, 90s probably even. I do. There was a one or two posters I saw on Kelly's socials responding to it that were not best pleased that he had chosen to miss a run of the mill league game last week. Let's be honest, in order to go to this. But even beyond that, presumably as a legal entitlement apart from anything else. So
surely.
Because Kettlewell said after the game he hadn't trained even that much this week, and obviously it was searingly hot. But funnily enough, a professional athlete seemed to manage it. So
you're spot on though. That it's like, and all those people that were saying that on the Twitter, that in any other line of work they wouldn't be involved in, any of their friends would be involved in, would refer to it as a fucking disgrace if they weren't allowed the time off to go to be at the birth. But again, it's just another example of we just quite regularly just do not treat footballers like human beings whatsoever.
I could understand it if it was like a cup final or something, then, and I suspect the player probably would be very, very tempted, especially someone like Brad Lyons, who's not going to play in many cup finals, let's be honest, to maybe miss that and justify it to the Wayne in 18 years' time. But I don't think a game at Easter Road, a stadium that Kelly play at roughly twice every year, is really anything to be worried about. But anyway, he was back in the team. He was back into midfield, having played a little bit at wing back and he played centre half in the opening game of the season due to a shortage there. Back into midfield, good performance, and obviously netted the winning goal in the game as well. So he was a winner. Game all round, Kelly thoroughly deserved to win, I felt, based on the second half especially, but a lot of that was down to Dundee United running out of steam. Like 120 minutes in midweek, devastating outcome at the end of that as well, and a bit of an injury crisis. So it was a good time to play them, I would say, because the second half, Kelly kind of just ran over the top of them. They didn't get out, they didn't get into our half very often, to be honest. They were struggling to get up the park. And I do think this Kelly team are not a team that you want to be playing when you're like that, because there's a lot of running, there's a lot of energy in the team. Especially
with how Liam Polworth's now decided to become sort of like the most sort of aggressive front foot central midfielder that I've seen in a while, which was I've been really, really impressed with the starting. But I mean, you touched on the Dundee United injuries. I mean, we're kicking at about 10 maybe now, and Waters came off after about 50 minutes, did he not?
Yes, yeah, and I'd been saying from the European podcast, been really impressed with him, but they brought on Owen Sturton, who ultimately scored Dundee United's goal in a nice taking finish. And I think it was Sean that had pointed out, and I hadn't realised quite how good his goal scoring record across his career is, because I knew he had a good loan at Montrose last season, but it's something like 10 career goals in 15 games or something already for a teenager, which regardless of what level some of them have come at, it's good. And he's a very confident boy as well. You saw that with the dink that he tried to score midweek, which I think that there's a lot to like about him as a player. I thought he was pretty decent, but in keeping with all of his teammates, they faded very badly, and the Dundee United defending was atrocious for both goals. Because you see, I mean, it's a really nice pick out from Brannan for the first goal. It's definitely a long pass, and Dackers takes it brilliantly. It comes, he makes a good run. It takes it in his stride perfectly. It's a really good finish. It's the exact goal that you would not expect from a man who I believe scored either 1 or 0 goals in League Two and playing like basically every game last season. Mm-hmm. But it was a really nicely taken finish.
Are you quite impressed with? I know you spoke about Dackers on some of the sort of pre-season transfer podcasts that we've done with Fowler, and I know you've been saying like it seems quite impressive from. I mean, as modern football and especially Scottish football right now, scouting and analytics seems to come up every single waking minute of every day. But where Kilmarnock, like you're talking about that goal scoring feat in League Two, and I don't know if you spoke about this on a pod recently or if it was outside of it. But you were talking that in your eyes it's starting to look like he was sort of miscast in his previous roles at other teams.
Yeah, I'm talking about. I think he's brilliant. I am amazed by how good he is, to be honest. Like, you see the words 6'7" striker, and you've got a particular type of player in your mind. I don't think you can get away from that. And he's not that. He's not. And that may be well. You think of the lower leagues of England. He's played a lot in. He played a lot in the National League, where his goal scoring records was marginally better. But yeah, he was in League Two. I think I'm looking at it, a total of over 50 games in League Two and 1 goal. And you worry about that, but that may well be because they just went, here's a big 6'7" guy, let's just chuck crosses at him. It's not that he's not good in the air, because even though I don't think he is good in the air, but because he's big, it doesn't matter. Like you saw the flick on for Anderson at there. Yeah. But he is much better as a footballer. He runs the channels very well. He's mobile. He runs the channels well. You saw the assist against Hibs where he turns Bashiri inside out. he's got a lot of striker's instincts. There's a bit of feel bear about him, and you obviously know what Kettlewell managed to do with him. I have been majorly impressed with him, and it was a really nice goal. He has bad touches, and when his touches are bad because he's like so big, it's like a trampoline that goes like 40 feet away from him. But his touch is actually on the whole pretty good. And yes, I really like him. But
I was really impressed with him Easter Road. Despite like in the second half, he was pinning the Hibs defence back because the Hibs were panicking loads in that game, not to go over old ground again. But in that second half, especially, Hibs really got spooked. And a big part of what Kilmarnock were able to do was they could take advantage of whatever mistake Hibs are making. They could get on that ball really fast and they could get into Daka straight away. And I don't mean into his head, I mean just into his feet or into his body. And he would have a tidy and then Kilmarnock were able to swarm. So it wasn't like they were winning the ball back and then just rotating. They were able to get, right, we got it. Hibs are flagging right at the heart of them, straight into the striker. Everyone get forward, which is the worst case. That's exactly what you want your team to do when you know you've got a team sort of like scrambling a bit. And his touch looked on the whole really, really good. But again, we've just ended up talking about Dackers.
It's impossible not to talk about. Like, he's 22. He's only 22. He's played a fair bit of football. He was in like Man City and Brighton's academy. So you're not again talking. It's not like he's got footballing upbringing. It's not like he's he shouldn't be rough around the edges, and he's not really. But yeah. As I said, the game was characterised by that. I was talking about the bad defending there, but the defending for the winning goal is like has to be seen to be believed because it's a free kick out wide for Kelly. And Kilty, to be fair, I could have had him. He's not featured probably as much as he would have hoped in the league since the season started, just for various reasons. He comes on in this game. He's the one I thought he was pretty good on the whole, but he's the one that delivers the free kick. It's round the back. Lewis Mayo comes round the back and probably has 6 or 7 yards of space in the penalty box round the back post, and he nods it into Lyons, who is maybe 10 yards out. And again, there is not a soul near him, and he hits it straight through the goalkeeper also. So there was just a lot not to like for Jim Goodwin about that goal. After that, I don't think United threatened at all. If anyone was going to score, it was probably going to be Kelly again. So a really positive afternoon for Kelly. A lot of negatives for Dundee United. Very but much
caveated, do you think?
Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah,
but it does very much feel like the position Kelly were in last season, where I kept saying, once we've got Europe out the way, you can see the building blocks are there. It's not all that bad, but it just kind of seemed to be a sort of 9-month hangover from that. Now they've played, obviously they'll have played 2 less European games than we did, but you do worry because you're already seeing the exact same sort of comments, and it's like, that's fine, but you do need to start winning soon, otherwise it becomes not that they're conceding 2 goals a game. Like, that's not good.
That's not good. Yeah, as simple as that. Let's move on and let's go to Ibrox, where despite Rangers sort of winning, I don't think this helped Russell Martin or the wider club at all. This 4-2 victory over Alloa. And the loser I was bringing right away for a couple of reasons was Joe Rothwell, who after a sort of like the way he started at Rangers, you could debate whether it was good or not, but it seemed like he was being set up to be a linchpin player. And also with the way that Russell Martin plays the game, a guy like him seems to be exactly what a team like that would need. Guy who's willing to drop in, he plays easy passes, he's pretty good on the half turn, and he's got a good range of passing, and he plays with his head on the swivel, blah, 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 all that types of thing. And just the fact that he sort of lost his place recently already after a few, especially in the European games, where he didn't look particularly impressive. And he didn't play in the midweek game against the Czech side during the week. And then 10 changes are made. And I was thinking that maybe Rothwell would still not be seen in this Rangers game due to there being the Champions League game during the week. And he started again, which I was a bit like, I don't know what does that mean about Rothwell, as I said, because in my mind, this is a guy that I really pictured to be Russell Martin, like a player that Russell Martin must have, and that style of player has to exist. And then he plays in this, and then he scores sort of like the most comedic own goal that you'll ever see, Craig.
See, to be fair, yeah, I mean, it's a bad own goal, but it could have been a lot worse, because I actually think if that doesn't go in, he probably gets sent off, and it's a penalty. Because you can debate. There's obviously I think there's a difference. You talk about the penalty later on that Rangers get, where the Alloa player it comes off the Alloa player's hand and it's goal bound. He gets a yellow card, but that's because it was deemed not deliberate. In Rothwell's, he is very much deliberately moving his hand towards the ball to stop that. And had it
which is a lunatic sort of decision to go when you're about to be drawn level by Alloa Athletic. Just let the goal go in and then win 5-1.
yeah, but that makes so. But yeah, I think he probably gets sent off if it doesn't go in. So maybe he's like just deliberately like, fuck, I'm going to get sent off. I'm going to be boiled. I don't think he did.
Cannon's off his head while he's lying on the ground.
Fling myself at it, try and score. But no, it was badly defended though. But I think we've obviously been having a bit of a running joke with Rothwell, because Ewan has been so forthright in his praise about him, based on I don't know, based on a friendly or based on the first game against Panathinaikos. But because ever since that, I didn't see that first game against Panathinaikos, but ever since that, I've not been impressed. But you can see what the idea of him should be. He's absolutely, he's got that kind of Lundstrom feeling about him. He's like a big guy. He's probably a better footballer than he was, which fits into the style of play. He should be physical, he should be able to impose himself, and he should be the sort of metronome in the midfield, the one that everything goes through. He leads the team from the middle, the linchpin, all the rest of it. We're not seeing that though. We are seeing a guy who looks a pace short. He looks like the game is always passing him by, and you're playing against Alloa, Ibrox. Like that should not be the case.
Yeah, you should have 5,000 touches.
Yeah,
in the ball in that position against Al. And it was just the other problems in the Champions League games after that one that obviously was Ewan was chuffed to him, and the other ones that you watch, he's giving the ball away a lot. The passes are short. So I'm a bit. It's exactly what you said. I see the idea of him. I can see exactly what the signing is for, and why he should be really important, and still why he might go on to get there. But similar to the team on the whole, or the squad on the whole, and the manager, it's just not gotten off to a great start. I mean, Giga when he went on the run as well, to cost that whole situation when he tried to dribble through sort of the Alloa team through the middle. That was like a mad decision to just try and run through the middle, and then he stays on the ground looking for the foul, despite the fact him being the centre half, and he's left a hole at the back there. So yeah, just all the same issues that were coming up, and it's finding it really hard. I don't know about you, to see how they quite get away with it against Club Brugge like they've had in these other games. It just seems like it's just a step too far. But it's Rangers in Europe.
It's Rangers in Europe. It's like Barry Ferguson beat Fenerbahce. So at this point, it's where do you go with this? But I do agree with you. Like, they've just been deeply unimpressive, and we can talk about the game as a whole. You deserve to win the game if you're looking at it objectively as to evenly matched teams. But it was unconvincing. They had the game was alive right until the 89th minute. They get a very, very fortunate penalty. I would say I do not believe that should be a penalty.
It was so close to him, and he's just in the running motion.
Yeah, it's not. It's a natural. Yeah, I get the feeling that's going to be. I could be wrong, but I get the feeling that's going to be one that Willie Collum's going to be on that programme saying they don't think it should be a penalty. Maybe I'll be wrong, but it's
not like it's going towards the goal or anything like that. It's not. So I found it bizarre, and it's the fact that they went over to the screen and done it. But when they do that, I'm assuming that I'm sitting there thinking that must be one of the ones where I don't agree with the rules. rather than it being incorrect, because there's so many people involved by the time he gets there, getting to that decision, and everyone's watching it from every angle. And that always just means me assume that obviously that must be the rules. That's maybe how it works. But
I mean, don't get it, maybe they'll decide that would. But the whole point has been, and I felt it was the case last season, that the first season we had VAR, it was like handball lottery. Everything, it was turning into a bit of a farce because you were just getting penalties out of nowhere. And I felt like when Colm came in at the start of last season, he was very clear about the fact that there would be a lot fewer penalties for handball. There was an example on the very opening day of last season with Rangers and Hearts where there wasn't one, and then through the season that was stuck to. And I felt that under everything that's gone before, that shouldn't have been a penalty. And yeah, especially for VAR to actually intervene to give it is the kind of, if it's on the park, fair enough, maybe you don't overturn it, but yeah, I don't like that as a penalty. As I said, I don't think like Rangers would probably have won the game anyway, but it's just that like annoyance because then the Alloa do get one back and it's a very easy goal from a pretty simple set piece, and there wasn't a lot to like, I would say, about Rangers there.
And I wish you could talk more at length and maybe be more positive about Alloa, but obviously they still got beat by a couple of goals. I still thought they were quite. I like this sometimes. I know this and this is probably easy for me to say after Kieran Dowie's goal last week, but I do quite like when a much weaker team doesn't get near the goal much, and they are willing. Like I think it was Buchanan in the first half. Like he got one on target, nearly got on target from like 40 yards, a shot because it was on. I do think when you're the much weaker team, and like it's not even that you're not going to create many chances. You're barely going to get into, but when get into positions to have shots, that when those situations become apparent, they're probably quite good to spring on the opposition team, something a bit left field when the opportunity comes. And obviously they do. The boy out wide. Sorry, I just don't know. I'm just going to be completely honest. I don't know the Alloa team like the back of my hand. I think it might have been. I'm being totally found out here. I think it might have been Orsi maybe or Buchanan as well, and that helps out wide, that skins them to get to the byline to create the goal. I thought they were good in the sort of when it was the positions where they had to make the quick decisions, and they made, and like you said, from a set piece, they made a lot from not very much. And I think it's easy for us to obviously criticise Rangers for that, but at the same time, it'll feel good for Alloa in that type of environment at Ibrox that they did try to make something out of every single opportunity that came their way.
Yeah, and I was going to say about Hibs, and we were going to talk about Mulligan's goal, but I think I am pleased a winner for me is the fact that people are shooting from distance a bit more. I feel like we went through a bit of an era in football where it was too risk averse. So, people saying, well, if you shoot from 30 yards, you're most likely going to give the ball away, and then why not play the pass? But it's more fun when people ping it from distance. We saw some really impressive goals. We saw Bowie's the other night. We saw Mulligan's. Brannan's had that one.
I mean, the goals that I've seen at Easter Road alone this season have all been like absolute rakers.
They're low percentage goals, but they're like they're what you want to see. And there's been plenty more examples of people nearly scoring from distance. So more of that, please. We'll pass on that discussion now.
Let's go to the Edinburgh clubs now as a duo, and we'll go to Hibs. We were just talking about them there, and I think the winner from my point of view is the new signings at Hibs taking their opportunity, and sort of like even though it's only one game, and from a supporter's point of view, sort of excitement that actually there's a pretty big depth of squad at Hibs right now. I don't know about you, Craig. I think a lot of people are starting to feel this way with Cleegee and Chaiwa, maybe less Chaiwa because he come in and he's only 21. But there seemed to be a lot of management going on by Hibs, like trying to make sure that our expectations were managed, and the fact that Cleegee had been playing like pre-season and at Lucerne in Switzerland. So like there wasn't really fitness concerns, and there was a lot of like, oh, he needs settling in, and just that stuff. I don't know about you, that stuff always worries me. I don't know about how you feel about stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it was more the fact that you're there's a lot of fanfare about him being the record signing, and then you've got big European games. You saw the other night, I think I mentioned on the podcast, Kieran Bowie's like running himself into the ground, and you're not trusting this guy to bring him on for more than like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That
you're
was a
picking
worry
you
to
and
me.
before him in each time.
Yeah.
Picking you and before him each time. Yeah.
And that was a bit of a worry for me if you're thinking about like how good the guy is. But even I saw you kind of raving about him in terms of the swim, but even just from watching the highlights of the game, you can see he was involved. And I think even if you're not good, and I'm not saying this applies to him, but even if you're not good, if you can get yourself involved, things are going to happen for him, and he seems to want to be part of the game.
Massive,
and he's doing stuff here and there. He gets credited with the goal. I'm not sure that's his goal. I thought
the goalie hits off the goalie's hand and goes into the side net, and I think is what happened. So I think it is. I thought
it maybe hit a teammate, but
like Cress goes into the side. I think the goalie could arguably do a bit better. The goal's something that I quite liked, and it's something that I've seen from him on his highlights reels, and obviously the few times on the pitch that, despite the fact he's quite small, he looks pretty handy in the air, and he looks like his movement's good at getting across people. In Belgrade, he got up really well in the last minute against a huge defender. And the defender's obviously desperate to get the ball to try and get Belgrade forward, and he manages to win the flick on and gets it down to Yuan, which basically finishes the entire game. But bizarrely, the thing that sort of excited me the most about, for instance, Klidje and Chaiwa, it was obviously we Hibs have made a lot of other signings, but there've been a lot of domestic signings, especially since Malky Mackay's been involved. But with Garvin Stewart coming in, we've obviously looked at a lot of the sort of Scandinavian market. I mean, we took Salinger from Austria. Manny came in from Denmark last season, who also played well in this game. And then specifically this summer, went to the Swiss League and signed 2 African players in Klidje and Chaiwa. And you imagine a big part of that is us with the Black Knights and Garvin Stewart using bloody analytics and data and all that type of stuff. So you're always a bit like, oh, we all know what we think. We've got quite a relatively unique league that we play in. So you sometimes worry when we are bringing in the foreign players. And the things that got me excited right away about Chaiwa and Klidje is rather than like incredible bits of skill or electric pace over the top or a lovely pass, that was just like straight away Klidje looked like he had the pest factor. So even before I saw anything else, it was the fact that he was getting himself involved in everything. He was in everyone's face. He was actually throwing his weight about. He looked pretty good in the air for a small guy, and he was making sure there was no lost causes. These things are massive in our league, especially for a striker. And then when I'm looking at Chaiwa, seeing he can cover tons of ground. He's getting across, he's shuffling across everywhere. He looks like he loves having a tackle, and again, looks strong with a low centre of gravity. So straight away, and again, it's only one match, and if it was a poor performance, I'd be sitting here saying, oh, we can't read too much into it. But straight away, Craig, in terms of that side of Hibs sort of transfer business, which I don't know about you, maybe I was a bit worried about it, and there has been a lot of expectation handling being done that was maybe giving me worry. I was absolutely buzzing straight away to think it looks like the people that are doing that side of things at Hibs at the moment, even when they go into foreign leagues and they're spending money, have realised kind of like the attributes that are kind of like you just have to have them regardless of anything else.
Yeah, you've seen plenty of good players who are undoubtedly good players coming to Scotland, and for whatever reason they kind of hack it here. So yeah, you do need to have a certain, and it's a kind of intangible quality, and it's the thing I always worry about with these data models is I'm not claiming Scotland's unique in this case. Like I think every country will have its own sort of deal breakers for players, but in that Scottish case, like it is that kind of ability to kind of deal with going to Livingston and being Martindale how do you cope with it? And in that respect, it's a good test for these guys. And I don't think that's easily something that can be identified in the model. So that's something that you need people with on the ground experience. You need people to actually still watch the players and say, right, well, I've seen here, this is, I think he's going to be able to mix it and all the rest of it. And yeah, it's a positive because it did feel like these players weren't being used for a lot of the start of the season. The goalkeepers hadn't played up until this point. Obviously, what happened in midweek, you will be quite wondering now, is that it? Is that him now in? Or was this always planned? But we'll find out soon enough. And yeah, some of the other guys, obviously, the Chalwa, is that his name, was signed.
Chaiwa,
Check to get the pronunciation right. Was not signed that long ago, so that's fine. But Cleege had been waiting a while to get his chance. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out, because it's not just Hibs who are doing this kind of business. There's been quite a few clubs that
Dundee United have brought in a full
team
team of foreigners, essentially.
And Hearts, who we'll get on to, have brought a few in as well. I mean, everyone, again, apart from my own club, in fact, seems to be kind of completely but we'll wait and see. Still time, but
it was exciting. Like, in terms of the other things about these players, like Cleege's touch looked very good. In terms of the things that, when I'm moving away from just the things that I'm desperate to see in terms of physical and attributes, his touch was really good, and he didn't look scared to have a shot, as you saw. I mean, he had a shot within the opening sort of minute, a looping volley that went over. And Chaiwa, I would probably go towards him, to me, being the best player in the park. And it'll be, again, interesting. Cleege's not going to start. It's going to be Bowie and Boyle. Like, there's no that, and that's nothing. Cleege could have scored a hat-trick and it might still have been Bowie and Boyle going into Thursday. But Salinger, there's something to be had there for him in that game. He wasn't challenged so much, but some of his kicking was erratic, but he did have a few like Ederson-style passes, which is kind of something that was brought to your attention about Salinger when he came in. But with Chaiwa as well, against Belgrade, Hibs, there was periods even when Belgrade were down to 10 men that he still could have drove a truck through Hibs midfield. It didn't seem like a problem through the middle of the park that Hibs had. I imagine part of that was because Jane McGrath wasn't playing, and Jane McGrath has brought so much more in the start of the season than I ever expected him to bring, on top of just the deliveries and being a goal threat. But his work rate and his off-the-ball running has been huge, especially playing in sort of the most attacking of the midfield slots. But you would still say that there's Chaiwa's position, I still say, is kind of up for grabs. And as I said, there has been a weakness in Hibs, especially in that Belgrade game there. So he maybe hasn't done himself any harm. And it's good, because it was a position that, even with Levitt starting well, Mulligan starting well, McGrath starting well, that still felt that we were lacking in that specific role. And as a defensive midfielder, even though Chaiwa was great, he looked so much more than that. But he was able to cover ground, and he wanted to put a tackle, and he knew how to cover players when they were bursting forward. So yeah, it's given me a whole lot more confidence, especially going into this game. Anyway, and also that if we do manage to make it, that this game is almost like, as the kids would say, low key, looks so important for the wider things about what is possible for Hibs this season, because it needed to be tested at some point and we weren't getting to see it. So it was quite exciting. From my point of view, I was really quite buzzing after the game. A lot more buzzing than you'd expect someone to be after winning 2-0 at Livingston in the League Cup. I wasn't going to do this, and we're already talking about our time on the podcast, but Josh Mulligan, I have been very impressed so far, and I know that you have been as well. Do you want to briefly... Oh, man, he's been tremendous. It's one, and it's again... I said this when he first signed, because Gary, I'd watched him enough, and it's like, it's just guys that are purpose built for it. And this is, again, when you're saying the things that data can't necessarily tell you, is it just that all action ball carrying midfielders are just, you have to have them. And it's got, if you want to be very successful, you feel like you need to have one of those guys in your team. And Hibs are in this tough one there where there's more midfielders that maybe you could move Mulligan into right wing back instead of Cadden, because you do feel like Chris Cadden is good. He's a good squad player, but he does feel like in this Hibs team, which seems better than other iterations of Hibs for a long time, he still looks like a weak link. But it's feel like now with Mulligan in the second half of the game against Kilmarnock, he was the only player that was getting Hibs out. And then in the first half in Belgrade, I know he got the booking, so they had to sub him off. His midfield work's just so good, and he's driving the team forward. And if you want to develop a player like Hibs want to do Mulligan, it feels very tempting to want to develop a driving central midfielder rather than like keeping him as a right wing back. So he might be played in and out of it, but it does feel like near impossible now to not just think that he might be one of the three central. He's the one who can do something that the rest can't do. Levitt's quite tidy. Jane McGrath is very good on the ball, is quite box to box and is creative, but no one's got the tenacity, the drive, and the ball carrying. And in terms of, I keep on saying it when we're playing these European teams, you want to bring a bit of Scottish football to them, which is Kieran Bowie battering them up front and Mulligan driving at them through the middle and making big tackles and then carrying it forward. So, yeah, he looks like he's been just a really good, and for other clubs, it's quite an obvious signing. Other teams, it seemed that Hibs got quite a free run at this, and it's starting to look silly already.
I'll leave it on the fact that I saw a John McGinn comparison in our group chat. I can't remember who it was from, but
it would almost certainly have been from me. But it's and I think other people have said it as well. It's just it's a style of player. He's nowhere near that level. I doubt he'll be playing the Champions League quarter final. Would you
have said that with John McGinn when he was that age? Maybe
exactly.
Not, but
exactly. It's just, but again, more.
I mean, McGinn had played for Scotland by that age, to be fair. But
it's just that it just seems so obvious, the Mulligan one. I was excited the minute it came in, even though Mulligan wasn't perfect for Dundee. Again, it's where you just look at attributes singularly and you go, well, and when he's got loads of better players around him, you assume that he'll have more room to do it. But Livingston will be disappointed. They didn't really give Hibs any bother. They didn't struggle them. Hanley's able to stroll through that because it's just the way that they were playing was playing right into his hands, and they just didn't really create. I think the best chance he created was the one that Hanley sort of diverted over the bar that could have been an own goal. I was surprised at how little Livingston sort of got in our faces.
Because I spoke earlier about Kelly and it coming absolutely the right time for us in terms of playing Dundee United and all right, Hibs, as you've spoken about, I've got a lot more depth in Dundee United, a better team than Dundee United to begin with anyway. But it felt like it was an opportunity for Livy as well if they could impose themselves, especially with Hibs, unlike United, actually also having an eye on next midweek.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt very sort of a straightforward win for Hibs, which will really disappoint Martindale. I think if they lose, but they've been made to fight for it, he might have been a bit less bothered. But
yeah, because he seemed very disappointed after the game because he was like, because it felt like it had just been almost written off. And as I said, without troubling Hibs created, even when Livingston did start to put Hibs under pressure without scoring, Hibs still broke forward and created the better opportunities. Cleansy with the ball round. I think it would have been offside for Hoylett, but again, just creating more chances. And then just before the goal for Mulligan was a great chance. But let's move on to more fun things. Teams who are signing players, throwing them all in one game in the League Cup, and it just not working. So it was the losers for today was Hearts' new signings, Craig, and I suppose in turn, as all roads lead to us having to say Jamestown Analytics.
Yeah, well, yeah, Jamestown are Hearts at this point. It's impossible to have any discourse about them without it.
Yeah.
Every single one of those signings that Hearts made on paper, you're like, what on earth are they doing? Like that's my thought. It doesn't mean it's not going to work, but I'm looking at with the exception of Kizaridis, because although the level he's coming from isn't great, it's far better than where the other ones came from, and his record was phenomenal at his previous club. All the other ones, it's like Kabore, it doesn't matter how many goals you've been scoring. It is the Estonian league. It doesn't mean he's not good. but it means it's the Estonian League, and he could either be really, really good, or he could be shite. And we're not writing him off as the latter based on this one game. But there were so many of these signings where it perhaps to me separates out, and this may be the strategy for the next wee while, and it's just about doing this, trying to build a team to win games and trophies and matches versus trying to make money out of your football club. Because if you're trying to make money out of your football club, you sign 11 of these guys, and to be honest, if 2 of them turn out all right and one of them turns out to be a star, you're making loads of money, on that kind of rolling basis, and then you reinvest, and that's to an extent what was done at Union Sanctuary was. So it's always going to be the comparison for Hearts, because there's no point in comparing them to Brighton. But it is presumably it has to be, if you are bringing in guys who are completely alien to this level of football, as we spoke about before, there can be a learning curve for them, and it does mean that when you put these guys in, Hearts are sacrificing. They shouldn't be just fully sacrificing, and let's not get it wrong. They lost on penalties away from home in a tough tie, but you are reducing your chances of winning a trophy, which is ultimately the reason football clubs exist.
I was surprised that they they made quite so many, about 3 changes, and they brought Magnussen into centre midfield against a very good midfield and aggressive. Again, it's like similar to what Hibs are doing. It was felt like a bit of an acid test. Like, what's the most Scottish football situation we can drop these players into and see if they sink or swim? So Magnussen coming from there and going up against that sort of level of not just good midfield, but also that level of how Scottish football, that midfield and the way it behaves is. And then Kibori and Kizarida, it's just, what do we need to put? Do you not want to bleed some of them all in one at a time so they can create, when they get to play with the better players, considering they're already coming from your presumption quite far back? Kibori, and like you said, like people are like, oh, he scored this many goals. If he didn't score that many goals in the Estonian League, it would be fucking ridiculous that he was signing for Hearts. That is the bare minimum of where that guy can be. Otherwise, that is like if he'd scored 3, you'd be like, that's the most ridiculous signing in history. I don't need to look at his stats. My assumption if he's coming to Hearts is he must have scored shitloads at that level if they're even entertaining the idea of getting this guy on board. So I thought it was almost felt like just a bit like, well, we have to give them a run at some point, and we'll do it now rather than doing it from any sort of like controlled way of bringing these guys into the team.
The worry is it can be a momentum killer, although it might not be, and it might be fine. But Hearts has started the season winning 6 games in a row. That in itself, like, that is how you build momentum. McInnes has always been a momentum-based manager, I feel like, where his teams start winning and they can't stop for a while. And you've got this introduced here. And to me, it felt like he's having to... I don't think Derek McInnes would have picked that lineup if it wasn't for the other stuff around the club, where he can't just keep picking the same players and he's leaving all of these Jamestown signings on the bench, because then it's like, what's the point? And to me, that's always been the mismatch between that appointment and the thing. And I do think I think he knows this himself, so I don't think this is it. I think to an extent McInnes is a sort of the sacrificial lamb for this whole project.
Exactly. I said this on the preview pod, that he's got shitloads on the line for this, and he's moving forward at a time into this where where he's going to be, because he wants to move into this level of club again. It still felt like a really dangerous way for him to do it, and they didn't actually pick him, so he'll be a really easy guy to shuffle blame onto, essentially.
And I think he will accept it, because I think he will back himself, and I think they will, to probably finish third this season, and then potentially they don't do it next season, but he can point at Europe, and he can point at all this going on, and that'll be a reputation kind of enhanced again. But it feels like he's kind of almost being pushed whether he is being explicitly pushed by the club to pick these players, I doubt that Tony Bloom is, on the phone saying you have to pick.
Yeah.
But there's obviously a pressure that what's the point in signing all these players?
Well, you want to be seen as the manager who does it. Because you're in that environment now, so you need to be seen to be...
Otherwise, you're not essentially doing the job you've been hired to do. So it's like, you've got this...
So people might not say anything, but it doesn't mean that there isn't an unwritten sort of expectation on the situation that you're in.
But don't get me wrong, Hearts could have sent out their strongest team and struggled to beat St Mirren away from home, because St Mirren are a very good team. We know that. Okay, they've not had maybe they started to hope for in the league, but it was two tough fixtures that they started with. They lost narrowly to Celtic. They drew with Motherwell. It's not the end of the world. And they were really good. I watched this game in the first half. Sort of like Hearts seemed to get a bit stuck between Kabore and McEntee, what positions they were playing. McEntee was coming inside. And then Kabore would go out to the right wing back, and that all looked a bit confused, and that got sort of fixed later on in the half. But St Mirren started really, really aggressively. I thought Bacchus was tremendous. Not everything came off, but again, similar to what I was touching on about new signings previously, it's more about their actions rather than everything coming off. And Bacchus was getting around the pitch. He was covering loads of ground. He was doing driving runs with the ball. The driving runs didn't become of anything, but he beat three guys and then it ran away from me. Like, this looks like the Bacchus of the first season that he was at St Mirren. And if that's the case and they have him back, then that's huge along with O'Hara and Phillips in there. So I'd be excited about that side of things. It felt like the right time to get him back in, because there's a World Cup coming up that we know that Australia have qualified for. So it's
that'll be a big driver.
Of course it is. It's
playing in Mansfield's fucking meaninless for the Australian team, I presume.
Yeah, you would imagine. I'm sure he went to Mansfield hoping he could get a bigger move than coming back to St Mirren, but
and he had a pretty decent season last season. I noticed he was involved in like 14 goals as a box to box midfielder, which seems all right. And he played like 40 odd games. So,
but it's still Mansfield. And Mansfield are never going to not be Mansfield. That's like it's like and you can talk about whatever you want about the relative levels, but the profile of the Scottish Premiership is always going to be higher, and especially in Australia. To be fair, we've both spent time there. You did see. You could watch Scottish football. I don't think you could watch English League One football very easily. No,
absolutely not. There was pubs everywhere that would show Scottish games, but St Mirren they had some really, really nice. They had some really, really nice combination play to try and create some chances. Richardson, I thought, was pretty poor, and it was his poor pass to try and pull it back to Mandron that would have been an absolute brilliant goal that St Mirren could have scored in the first half. The goal the Hearts conceded, it's a brilliant scissor kick for Gogic, but all it is a shifted ball, right? And he stands in the... I mean, you're talking about lack of marking in the Dundee United game. He's just standing in the middle of the goal, maybe about the penalty spot, and he does... He could have, if he wanted to, have taken a touch and just popped that home, but it was a very cool way for Gogic to finish. But for Hearts didn't get much better back in the second half, and again for them, for McEntee's equaliser, he sort of shakes off his marker quite easily from the corner. Then by the time he's getting there, he's practically kneeling completely by himself, sort of just nodding the ball home. So yeah, despite the defences feeling like they were really on top of this game with quite a lack of chances made, the two goals were crazy from set pieces, and that's another worry. You're going back to Hearts, is that just they've not scored goals to open play in the league against any of the Premier League teams so far. I mean, they've brought in so much sort of firepower and guys, and I'm assuming everything's geared towards getting Shanklin rattling in goals and having people around him who can also chip in. I'd say that's a little bit of a worry, and it's not unheard of in a Derek McInnes team.
No. He goes through these spells, and they're always going to be good for set piece goals. They've got big players in there. That's always going to be part of it, and that's fine. Like at the end of the season, when you look at the table, where the goals came from doesn't actually kind of count for points, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, from a if other teams can work out your set pieces, it means you're maybe struggling elsewhere.
You should maybe learn to defend them as well.
Yeah.
It would be my offer. But Freckleton was good at St Mirren. I was pretty impressed with him overall. And it's just, I've seen St Mirren now a couple of times, and very different in both games. I wasn't really impressed with them against Motherwell, but they're still going to get, in both games, watch them, they're still going to get plenty points. And they've got a few, and they could add a few more players, I think, in the forward positions as well. They went with Mandron and Ayunga in this game rather than Awoyu, who came on later on. So they've still got these other options, but I still think they could go with maybe another sort of good striker who's maybe a different profile from the big guys. Right, Craig, Let's move on next. Who have we got next? What about Aberdeen? And I think there's only one winner, the much maligned. I've never seen a player more maligned so quickly
in 2 games.
by everyone. Yeah, by everyone. Like, they're not just the Aberdeen fans have been giving him like an mental amount of stick, but I think the rest of Scottish football. And this is what happens. You're playing on the telly in the first game, and he's like with Dackers, no scored a goal in so long. So all eyes are on you. But he did manage to score the easiest goal of all time in this game.
Yeah, a tap in from a yard. Because I saw that and I was like, oh, geez, Morton have let him score. And watching it back, it's like, if he'd missed that, he would never have played again for Aberdeen. But it might give him a bit of confidence. I think Aberdeen needed the confidence, because as much as it's mad to say, given that literally 2 competitive games ago they were winning the Scottish Cup, they obviously had a pretty poor start to the season. Again, one of those games against Celtic, the other one's against Hearts. It's not like they've had...
But there was also the bleed over of barely winning any games last season for a large period.
It's the opposite of last season's start, but to just get a win regardless of the conditions and how it is going into Stoya in midweek, or FCSB. I don't know which one I'm meant to call them, but we know who they are. The fact that they just have a win under their belt should make a big difference. A very winnable tie for them. The other standout apart from Yengi is Clarkson's really nice finish. I saw it described as a chip, or I heard it described as a chip on the highlights. It's not a chip, that's a dink.
It's a dink, scoop almost.
A scoop. A chip would imply further out and from a stationary position, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
And then you've got a lob, which is a bouncing ball being flicked back in. So I would have said a dink, but nonetheless, a really lovely finish. And as comfortable as you'd like, because that looked on paper like a pretty ropey tie, I would say, going down to Capello.
And they also, by the way the game started, from what I was looking at and from what I've read, it wasn't convincing at the start. It wasn't like they were peddling loads of goal, like they weren't having loads of shots on goal at that point, or really troubling Morton. So the corner, and it's a good header, it's a nice flashing header for Nielsen into the corner. So it's big for Aberdeen. But I still cannot. I think they're going to get knocked out by Bucharest. I'm just not being. It's just hard to be convinced by a team that never wins. I know they beat Great Morton, but and they got that Celtic game. But outside of that, all I do is see Aberdeen lose and look really quite powder puff in every sort of way that they've done it.
They just keep bringing in new striker after new striker, and none of them seem to be very good. But I think you talk about the scouting models. I don't know that Aberdeen have much of a strategic signing model. It's just someone, it's old school, someone sees a player they quite like and we're like, we'll get him in. I could be wrong and I could be being unfair, but it feels like it's Scandinavian whack-a-mole. Every time you see their team, there's a new Danish or Swedish or Finnish guy you've never heard of as well.
And they just signed a striker, didn't they, from AC Milan, and he's only 20 years old, and his scoring record's poor. He's not scored in a long time, but never mind that. It just feels like not scored a long time, young striker. You're coming in. The pressure's going to be ramped up on that guy instantly, because that they are completely lacking in that specific position, and it looks like goals are coming hard to come by regardless.
And that's why you're with last season, I don't think he had a particularly good season. I don't think the move went that well for him if you just look at performances, but you look at the numbers, and Kevin Nisbet's move seemed he's still going to be available. I saw he strangely has the number 7 jersey for Millwall, but he's not been playing. He played in the League Cup. He's not been playing apart from that. Presumably he's going to end up back up the road, so it'll just be a guess of which of 3 clubs he ends up at, basically, which is
it's just
is it the 2 that he's played with before, or is it Hearts? I don't think it'll be Hearts, so there's no other level that he's going to.
I've just been thinking about when. It's all about when it happens. He'll not want to lose the 20 grand a week that I'm presuming he's on. So it might just be one of those where they you pay out his contract maybe, and that's the one he'll go to, and he'll get a portion of that money to make the move, and then for Millwall they don't actually lose anything. There'll be a bit of brinksmanship with that towards the end, but the fact no one's been knocking the door down to get him makes me feel that Millwall might just have to either pay him for the rest of the season, or as you see, just like make a deal where they don't lose any more money rather than gain any more.
Or it gets shipped off to MLS. That's always an option these days.
Yeah, so. That's an option. Him and Ryan Porteous. Yeah. And Son in LA. Why not? Looks like a good way of life. That'd be a good laugh. I mean, it doesn't actually, really. But, no, I hear people say that, but when I really think about it, it doesn't look great to me. Right, where am I off to next, Craig?
Let's go to Firhill.
Firhill, where Partick Thistle strolled past Ayr United, let's be honest. And I know you've got a loser about tradition and kickoffs, Craig.
Oh, yeah. Just like, I don't know if anyone watched the highlights now. What Premier Sports are playing at with these highlights, I'm not sure, but every single set of highlights showed the kickoff. I don't think I need to see the kickoff. I think the first set that I watched was, I think, St Johnstone and Motherwell, and they showed it, and I was like, oh, maybe because I think Motherwell, whoever took the kickoff, kind of built up to the other half, and I thought there's going to actually be a chance straight out of the blocks here. Interesting. And then there wasn't. It just went out for a throw-in. But they showed the kickoff. But I don't mind this, and some people turn their nose up at it, which is from a kickoff. A team takes a couple of passes backwards, lines up players on one side of the park, and then chips it in their direction to try and win a flick on, put them under pressure, try and kind of get some territory early on. I do not think I have ever seen in my life, and obviously it's not. It used to be the kickoff had to go backwards, so it's only been maybe the last 5 or 6 years we've been able to do this. I don't think I've ever seen in my life a team just running up and blasting the kickoff straight out of the pitch like it's rugby. Like I don't know if it was I don't know if that was the strategy, or if something, a bit of communication's gone wrong or whatever, or he's mishit what he's been trying to do. But the kickoff is literally one touch and bang out the pitch, and obviously the intention is to get the other team, put them under pressure. You press high up. That's the whole point of the first wee pass, so that when that ball goes out for the throw in, you actually have the ability to press because you have players there. I think Partick Thistle could very easily have picked up a ball and taken a quick throw in and had possession before you know it. I don't think they did, and I read actually from online that Ayr ended up pinning them in anyway, but it just feels like a complete... I do not know what you're up to. Scott Brown, a traditional football man, should not be partaking in these activities, and shame on him. And
I mean, that takes you on quite nicely to... It's not been a good season for Scott Brown. And obviously the second half of last season, well, not bad. It was obviously like... Ayr did fall away. I think that'd be a fair way of doing that. They signed some players. I mean, he spent money on Kevin Holt. It was obviously a well-known injury-prone player there. He's got these issues with every single goalkeeper at the club, as they see. And they've got some injuries just now. Dempsey's out, Murphy, McCann. But I mean, that game, look, they've not had a good start in the league. They lost to Raith Rovers at home. They drew with Arbroath, and now that looked like 2 going on about 6 going by the highlights, Craig.
Yeah, they were well beaten, and I saw their fans were pretty upset. And I have to say that I went to Rory McKenzie's testimonial at the start of the season, which was against them at Rugby Park. And as much as you don't want to judge too much from a friendly, I thought he looked really, really poor in that game as well. Even though it only finished 1-0, it was... They really didn't look cohesive in any way, and you kind of, you give it the benefit of the doubt. It's in the middle of July. This is like 2 weeks or a week before the League Cup even starts, but they obviously did all right in the groups to get themselves through, and that was fair enough. But beyond that, they've just like not started the season well. It is a continuation, as you said. It looks like they've spent big. You didn't mention there is maybe one of their, I would assume their highest earner, I would guess, which is Dom Thomas coming back over.
Yeah. And he came off the bench in this game.
Yeah, I've never played it. I've been convinced by, and I think he's made a pretty poor start to life there. So just a lot not going well for them, and it's maybe echoing the way he went at Fleetwood, because when he went in at Fleetwood, his first season, I think he did reasonably well, like relative to what Fleetwood had expected. If you look at what's happened to Fleetwood since, which they've spiralled downwards, but after that, it kind of didn't. It wasn't long before it fizzled out, because I don't think the style of football he plays is necessarily getting fans on side. So when it turns, because no one's got anything to cling on to.
Smashing the ball up to the corner of the pitch from kickoff.
And signing 18 goalkeepers a season is maybe not the way to do it. I don't know. They've lost some good players as well, and there's been a wee bit of turnover, but. Yeah, it feels like
Thistle didn't exactly have had a brilliant start to the season either.
Yeah, they won. I mean, they won all their group stage games, which is why they managed to get a tie against Ayr United at this stage of the competition. But in the league, it's been a pretty poor start for them, and their fans have been grumbling a wee bit about that. But this was as easy as you like. It looked like Tony Watt was quite lively.
He was involved in everything.
You can talk about Tony Watt as a Premiership player, in the fact that we saw last season again that maybe that time is up. The last time he was in the Championship, he had a good season with Dundee United. He won the league. Like there's nothing to suggest that shouldn't be a good signing for Thistle. But they were pretty comfortable. Like it's hard to kind of read too much into the game, because the goals were easy. Ayr barely threatened, and as you said, there was a disallowed goal. There were other chances beyond the one that went in. So it's like, as easy as Partick Thistle would like in order to get to a quarter final, but unfortunately they get there and get Celtic at home, and that's your run over, boys. Thank you very much.
All the best. Thank you. Right, let's make our way to Perth, shall we? Where St Johnstone and Motherwell played out 0-0 till extra time, and Motherwell finally got the goal that I think that their play deserved. And a winner, I went for just keeping it simple. This game didn't look too much in it. I had a winner and a loser. My winner was Fadinger, because he scored the winning goal. But my loser was maybe Jason Holt, Craig, who, when you're under the cosh as much as St Johnstone looked like in that game, no chances, then at injury time, you get a chance like that. You just can't miss it, can you?
It felt like even though I knew the result, when I was watching the highlights, that chance you're talking about, I was like, are St Johnstone going to steal this? And I'm like, no, they didn't. They lost. It felt like it's one of these for the Championship team that's trying to get promoted back to the Premiership. You get a Premiership team in the Cup early on, and it's always a wee bit of an acid test for how it's going to go. I remember when McInnes took over at Killie in the January, we played Dundee United in the Scottish Cup in one of his first games. It was a season United under Tam Courts, I think, went on to fin. Mm-hmm. Oh no, under Mickey Mellon. Was he after Courts or before? Courts, I think.
Courts is when they finished quite high up the league.
Yeah, it was that season. And we took them to extra time. We took them all the way, and it was one of those signs where you're like, okay, we're maybe not as far off as we think we could be, because we were maybe sitting third in the Championship at that point. And it could be the same for St Johnstone, where it's like, well, here's how we can compare ourselves to a decent Premiership team. But it did feel like Motherwell were always a superior team in the game, and that
which I think is going to be a theme around this season for what I've watched the Motherwell. I think it's going to be a theme that they properly do dominate possession, at least.
They're not creating like super clear-cut chances, though, and they're not taking the ones that they do get. And again, they've got a big money striker. They spent a decent amount of money on Stamatopoulos, and he's had injury problems, but I feel like he's been underwhelming so far. I don't think he's been bad. It's not like you watch him and go like, oh, you can't see why this money's been spent, but you do have to question, like, are they getting that value for the? It was rumoured to be as much as $250,000, I think. If I remember rightly.
I remember when it happened. Definitely.
They obviously sold Bear, and that was kind of what funded it. And I mean, obviously, yet again, they've already brought in Callum Hendry today, which is another striking option, and obviously they've got some lira burning a hole in their pocket now. But it'll be interesting to see how that squad gets built, because I do feel it's a wee bit scattergun at the moment with the new manager, and I don't know how much the manager's doing it. I don't know how much it's club level. Unconvinced still by the goalkeeper, even in this game. Like, there was a couple of moments, there was a shot that I think that went past the post, and I was like, you were nowhere near, you didn't even see that. Like, that was like, it wasn't.
Because he does look quite good. Like,
he looks good with the ball. Like,
he does look good with the ball, but I think which I know that Motherwell and the manager, that's absolutely what they want to do, and the last couple of managers have been building up towards that, so that's fair enough. But yeah, I'm still thinking the Oxborough would be. I don't know quite how much this guy can get, because he got away with one last week as well, and you just. As a Jordan Smith follower, it will catch up eventually. It will eventually. But with Motherwell, the Hendry one, I quite like the idea of it. I think a proper focal point is exactly what they need. I really enjoyed. They looked so well coached in terms of like how much work has to do to get them to play like that. Even the goal is really well worked for Verdingar. So I'd be again excited if a Motherwell fan. And hoping that Callum Hendry can be a bit more prolific than he's been elsewhere, but with his build and the way he plays football, I think it'll work really, really well, because you just want someone to bounce the ball off and someone to pin back the defenders to make sure that the midfielders can do the rotations and it gives time for people to get forward to play that nice football, sort of more in the last third than just in the midfield. But after watching them against Mirren, I was very impressed at how quickly he seemed to get his ideas and his strategy and how good the one-touch football and the possession football actually was. And they were always getting into the last third. They've got Longello gets in the last third a lot, who looks like he's going to be one of the most fun players in the league, from sublime to ridiculous, and a guy who looks like he'll be able to do so much and then just fucking smash the ball out the pitch. I've seen that happen 3 times already.
I feel like that's your choice in the Scottish Premiership at like our level of club, is you either get someone like him who can do everything else but can't cross the ball, i.e. the Chris Cadden, or you get a guy who can cross the ball and do nothing else, which is the Nicky Cadden. And it's like you never get the mega Cadden, like both things together. And if you do, you don't have them for long. I think he is very much in the Chris Cadden mould of it's like Cadden theory, we'll call it that. But he's in the Chris Cadden mould
I'm a fan of it.
But yeah, I think there's already clearly enough out of Motherwell this season where you think they are going to have an all right season. I don't think they're going to be circling the drain, but it could go up.
If they add something with that money, if they can add a couple of things that are right. Callum Hendry, I think, sensible. I think what they might end up doing is offloading Stam and signing another striker, which would, because I think Stam's just too much of an all-rounder. And who's okay. He doesn't seem to have any of, like when I was going through the attributes earlier, when I'm talking about Cleege and players like that, you need to have some of those. I just think you need to have some of those to be a success here. And he doesn't seem to have any of them. Venti was another one.
Yeah, I was going to say he reeks of Eredivisie. Like, that's exactly the
level you feel. Too. You'll score loads because you're quite good. You're not bad, but you're just not quick enough or quite strong enough or quite aggressive enough. Aggression being a big one, actually, with Stam, that you just don't have that. So it's not going to quite be enough. So I think, and then there was rumours that they had people looking to buy him. If I was that's kind of where I would think about doing. I've got Callum Hendry as my sensible signing, move on Stam, if I can get money for him, and then make another, like a money signing, when he's maybe spend, and for Motherwell, even with 4.5 million, that maybe spending 400k on a striker, and knowing that you've still got the safety net of Callum Hendry there if this guy takes a bit of time to get going, or if, God forbid, you just completely fuck up, which is also
it's
a
Motherwell.
huge...
I thought it was a Kettlewell thing of like just keeping signing strikers, but it seems like it's a Motherwell thing because it's just like, oh, is that another new striker for Motherwell today? Another one. But it will, yeah. So signing strikers will not be a problem for Motherwell. They will sign about 3 more.
Yeah, and then but Fidinga, I thought the goal was good. He looks like a really good all-round footballer. From what I've seen, he can do a bit of everything. He's quite creative. He's a nice touch. He's got a bit of dig. He can get around the park. I think he might be quite a smart signing from the little things that I've seen of him in the few games that he's done at the start. Right, where are we going? Bloody Parkhead, 4-1. They were good there last season for 20 minutes. That meant that Falkirk were going to storm the Scottish Premiership. But actually, maybe they've went and they've regressed. So the only winner I had from this, I just thought the obvious one was it Dane Murray, who scored his first goal for Celtic with a nice header, Craig.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting to see because I don't know what's going to happen with him longer term in terms of like there was a bit of chat about him going out on loan again, but they've signed him to this big new contract, and now you assume that he is going to be the Stephen Welsh role, which is the young guy who is mainly there because he can be on the bench in Europe, or he can be part of that European squad, which
he's already done in the past. He came on for 7 minutes against Aston Villa when he was pulled away from a successful loan spell to play 7 minutes in Europe in the Champions League and then give away a goal.
I think he played like 4 years ago when he was like really young, like as
it was like 18-year-old.
In a couple of qualifiers as well. So he's been there, he's done that kind of thing, but he's whether he's good enough or not. He had a very good loan spell at Queen's Park, but we are talking about Queen's Park in the Championship. That is a big step up to be saying you're going to be starting for Celtic. So I always think about it, if a centre half was doing well for Queen's Park, would Celtic go out and sign them to play in the Premiership? Probably not. So I feel like you have to excel.
Do you think maybe like Liam Scales gives these sort of guys because this guy can't be like totally dumb to the fact that like I'm getting a long-term deal at Celtic at 22 when I've barely ever played for them, and I was on loan to not even a fellow Premiership team last season. I was down in the Championship. He must be somewhat aware that about exactly what you say, that what his role and his reason for being there is. That would put some players off. But do you think the sort of weird career that Liam Scales has managed to sort of chisel out for himself, do you think that's what maybe makes him think, well, why not? If I'm there for 4 years, even if I dot around, who knows what situation I can come to at some point?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking I'm sure Welsh is like played in cup finals and things like that. Like he's ended up playing like a decent number of games for Celtic. It seems like they're probably cutting their losses at this point with him, but he's 25. He's 25 and barely kicked a ball in his career, but nonetheless, but it does. I'm reading that Stephen Welsh has 42 league appearances for Celtic and has played for them. That's about double as many as I would have thought he'd had.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting that COVID season, I think, where they kind of ended up having to play him. But yeah, it's hard for these guys because A, they're going to be getting offered more money by Celtic than they can be offered in Wales because they actually have Celtic over a barrel a wee bit as well with the homegrown situation. And because they'll back themselves, like they'll have been good players through their career and they'll think, well, yeah, I can do it. And Scales was Welsh's age. In fact, it was Murray's age when he signed for Celtic, or maybe even a wee bit older. So they will see, well, if he can do it coming in from Irish football, why can I not?
Via a poor loan spell at Aberdeen.
So there is a chance for him, but I don't know where he stands. Celtic will presumably, it looks to me like Celtic are doing what they always used to do, which would infuriate me as a non-Celtic fan, in the years where they had to qualify for the Champions League before, just like waiting until they qualify and then doing all their business in the space of like 3 days, which
that's my head in.
And then it's like,
no reason. They've never been in a better place to make these risks. Yeah, they've got loads. They could have a season without it. There's a club.
They've sold players for like so much even this window.
There isn't a team on planet Earth that's in more of a position to take a tiny risk on a game. So like it would infuriate me as well. It just seems absolutely meaningless.
It's fine in the situation where, like, this season, they can, I'm guessing, like, looking at what they are up against, like, they'll get away with it, doesn't really matter. But there have been other years where it's actually ended up costing them getting into the group stage in the first place.
Which is millions if you want to look at it purely from the financial aspect, yeah.
Like, they've done it in the past. They went out and they just paid the money for Carter Vickers and they just did it. And I think, and I'm not saying centre half is necessarily the position, just get out and do your business. Bring in the good players now. Yeah,
the ones that you're going to, you have to get the big name ones that are the cost ones.
Even if it's like so that by the time the Champions League games come around, they've played some games for you. You're not like giving them their debut against like Barcelona or something like. But I don't understand how the board kind of gets away with not spending any money on that squad.
Certainly the fans are vocal against them, but the beauty for them is that Rangers are always so shite that everyone forgets about it 6 months later when they're absolutely shagging them before to another league title. Falkirk, Bain back at his former club, he sort of held on as long as he could. A few camera saves for what I watched. I watched this game. Falkirk did try and play out. I'm not going to criticise them. They got beat by Celtic. It's not truly a big deal, but
you see old Miller, I think it is, with the Johnstone goal. Like, I understand that that's the way you play, but like, you are going to concede many more goals like that in the Premier, even against teams much worse than Celtic.
Never mind Celtic. People watch that and they're going to be all over it, and people. No credit, like people, loads of teams have energy in the Scottish Premiership, so loads of teams will go for your throat when you're trying to play that. But I'm not going to go on a rant about Falkirk. I feel like it's been done on every show, and going by online, it feels like some of them might be actually coming round to what we're finally saying. So let's leave them to it. Nice goal for Adams, when it is a bit of a winner for him, because you're the one that seems to have the most sort of fanfare about it, and those who know seem to know about Adams, and there's a wee bit of sort of underground sort of speculation, if you like, about what he can achieve as a player, and it's always handy as a young player going up to Parkhead and rifling a goal like that in at some point.
Well, just that's people, always going to be good. I always think it's like, see, when you get linked with a club, their fans can find a wee video of you doing something good, and it's like immediately if you do go there, or if the hype is about that thing, even though it can just be like, they got beat 4-1. He's part of a defence that conceded 4 goals in the game. That's lost. It's a video of him pinging in a raker at Celtic Park.
Right foot across. I mean, you're going back to your worst about Miller. You also had Henderson getting put under pressure and nearly scoring a goal, an own goal, curling it into the corner, a la Carter Vickers and Schmeichel last season in the Champions League at the opposite end of that ground. There was a few of that where you could just see what. But again, there's no point in going over the same ground we've been going over the last month.
I think I've been more positive on Falkirk than a few others have been, in the sense that I think we're talking about big picture. It's not going to work in terms of like there are going to be games. There will be games. Look at Dundee United game. They still got a point out of that game. Mm-hmm. I think they will win games. I think they will be competitive at the bottom. But I think what the pushback is against is that there seem to be people like genuinely suggesting they might like push for the top 6, and I do not understand where that can possibly come from. A successful season for Falkirk is probably not even 10th is obviously a successful season. I think finishing 11th would be a pretty good season for them, and then you've got a good chance of staying up.
And also, it's not that I'm necessarily always criticising the style of play. I like the fact that we said this before, a bottom 16 playing that way is cool. I want more teams to do it. It's more fun. But it's just like sign some players as well. Like just do it. If you're going to, otherwise we're looking at John McGlynn being the greatest coach of all time, who's taken players up 2 levels playing scintillating football, high-risk football, and then he pulls that off in the top flight as well. You can keep playing that way, and these guys can maybe give them some space to breathe while they get on top of this. Guys like Spence and stuff, by having a few other options in there, and then these guys can be squad players. There's nothing wrong with that. They've jumped up huge levels. But again, I don't want to rant about Falkirk. They got beat off Celtic, so we can slag them off next week when they lose against someone else. So thank you, Craig.
Yep.
For that sort of whistle stop tour around the
league.
It was too bad for us.
It was meant to be whistle stop, but we've probably done 70 odd minutes now, maybe even pushing 80. But that's to be expected.
80 minutes, I think, guys. So an hour and 15, I think we're at. So let's call it quits there. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Patreon content, tennis podcast. We're going to have shows coming out constantly, as you can tell. Just not really with it in terms of this hosting. I decided it too late, and I've not really been at my game. So you know all the things about us. You know about the tennis podcast. Come and go on our Patreon. We've got so much going up there constantly. And Craig, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Tony.